What is up, and welcome to another HO Scale Customs video. This week we're going to show you how we're going to turn this chintzy little lifelike vehicle into a junkyard heap. So something that might not be as useful on your layout like this, we're going to turn it into an extremely rusted, very dilapidated looking vehicle for a junkyard or just somewhere like an abandoned vehicle. So the first step is to pop the wheels off. This was a vehicle that was provided in a box kit with a train, and it came with a couple cars. You know, the things you see around the holidays. The next step is to pop the window glass out. There we go. So we're going to pop the piece of clear plastic out that served as glass for this car. It is out. So now we just have the basic body of the car. The next thing we're going to do is hit this with a flat black spray paint and hit the inside as well. That way when we weather this out, it will you won't see the white on the inside. So we're going to go real quick and spray paint the inside and outside of this vehicle with just a flat black. All right, so the car is now primed, flat black. It is ready to paint. I'm not so much worried about these parts because we're going to paint the wheels later. But today's video is mainly about rust. If you followed our live video, which was kind of grainy, which is why I'm doing another video right now, you'll have seen that I just covered a pickup truck in rust. So we're going to show you how we went from that lifelike, flat, just pure plastic looking car to a completely rusted out vehicle, and this is step one. So now it's covered in black flat spray paint. The first thing we're going to use tonight is the AK Corrosion texture. It is AK 8040, and it is it's a diorama diorama product, sorry, but you can use it for models as well. And there's a lot of other YouTube videos on how to use it. It is very thick, as you can tell, very soupy, kind of thick material. But if you get a little bit of water on your paintbrush, there's a little bit of water on here now, and you pick some of it up, you can thin it out for what you're going to do. So the key with rusting out a car to make it look like it's a junkyard heap is to pick areas where it is patchier, where there's more corrosion. So the roof would be a little more corroded. And what this corrosion texture is kind of a sandy based texture. It adds that rough looking, rusted out, corroded look to models. So we're going to pick areas that would have been exposed to more friction, whether it be through wind or rain pelting down on the flat surfaces of this old beat up car, and add our corrosion texture. You can thin this out with water to achieve your desired effect. If you want areas to be a little more corroded, you can leave it on a little thicker. If you want it to be a little less corroded, you can dip it in water like I just did and thin it out, spread it out a little more. And when it dries, it'll leave a little bit of a brown texture and a little bit of a brown hue on things. But I want the black paint to also show through in spots because I don't want it to be completely corroded. I mean, it's going to look really rusty anyways. But yeah. So there it is. That is the corrosion texture. I'll do a close-up for you guys here in a second. There is our corrosion texture. So we're going to let that dry. I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer, and we're going to continue working. Okay, so now you'll see our corrosion texture is completely dry, and it doesn't add like, let me get the light adjusted. It doesn't really add a corrosion look, but it adds like a sandy texture to the car's panels, which is key to what we're going to do next. All right, so the next three things we're going to work with are crusted rust deposits heavy, medium crusted rust deposits, and light crusted rust deposits. The other thing you're going to need is a little bit of white mineral spirits. This is clear, it just has some settlement on the bottom, and a round brush. So we got our round brush. We are going to start with giving a little bit of a shake. Just a little shake to our heavy crusted rust deposits from AK. What we're going to do is take our crusted rust deposits, and we're going to use this as a base. So you can be a little bit less conservative with your first coat of the heavy, darker crusted rust deposits, because it is essentially going to serve as a base coat for your Junkyard Heap vehicle. That is way too much. So I'm going to cover this vehicle real quick, and we'll come back once I'm done speeding this up. Okay, so we've applied our first coat of the heavy crusted rust deposits. We went very liberal with it in the beginning because I want this to look like a Junkyard Heap and covered in rust. So the very bottom coat, let me get some better lighting on it for you guys. The very bottom coat is all rust. Focus. If you can see, it is all rusted out. So what we're going to do is let this dry and not tip it over, and we'll come right back. So we have our first coat of the crusted rust deposits, which was the heavy crusted rust deposits, done. And you can see it's spotty, which is fine because now there's parts where the paint is showing through more, paint showing through less, where there's more rust taking place. The next step that we're going to do is use the medium crusted rust deposits, and we're just going to highlight different areas. So we're not going to cover it like we did with the first one. We're going to start to highlight areas that have more corrosion. Basically, where our corrosion texture that we put on in the first step is heavier, we're going to put more corrosion on there, and the rest of it we're just going to highlight other areas. So let me get to work on this, and I'll speed it up for you guys so you can watch along. Okay. So that is coating number 2 of the crusted rust deposits. Let me get you a close-up here in a second. Before it dries, you'll see that it's very high contrast, but it will, as it dries, you'll see the color change quite a bit. So we're going to let it dry, and we'll come back in just a second again. Okay, so now it's dry. It's a lot rustier than it looked before, but it's still kind of funny looking. Just looks a little weird. So what we're going to do is add our third color of rust, which is the light crusted rust deposits, and this is very, very, very bright orange. So it's kind of startling at first, but it's okay. We're going to show you how we dull it down a little bit after we get the third coat on. So what we do is get our light crusted rust deposits out. You can see it's a very bright orange, and this would be reserved for the most oxidized areas of your model, so where the most corrosion is. So let's hit that up real quick, and I'll show you how I do it. We're going to speed it up, and we'll see you on the other side. Okay, so that was step 3. It looks really funny right now, we know, but let's let this dry, and then I'll show you the 4th and final step that I do to make a rusted out looking vehicle. So we're going to dry this, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. So it's dry. It looks really funny. It looks like a Picasso, we know. So the 4th step, and I lied, there's 5 steps. So this is the 4th step. 4th step that I do is a little bit of a custom job. So I made a thing I call rust wash. And really all it is your mineral spirits or white spirits mixed with the crusted rust, just a couple drops of crusted rust, a couple drops of rust streaks, and a few drops of India ink wash. Mainly it's basically just a watered down wash of the 3 mixed up together in your mineral spirits. And all I do is get a little bit on my brush. It's a brown wash in mineral spirits, and I cover my model or my piece that is going to be my junkyard rust in a light wash of this. And what it's doing is it's spreading around the harshness of the rust effects. So you're not getting all that high contrast rust. You're going to get a blend now. So you're still going to see your brighter effects that you just put on. And you're going to get all your deeper color rusts in there too. And you're going to see where the paint was exposed as well, where it wasn't quite as heavy. And what it's really also doing is adding a toned down version of all the colors that you saw previously, where it looked kind of funny. So there it is, just a quick cover of just a rust wash, which again is mineral spirits and a few drops of rust streaks with a pipette. I'm sorry, crusted rust with a pipette, rust streaks with a pipette, and then a few drops of just like 1 or 2 drops of an India ink wash. You don't need much at all. So we're just going to let that dry for a minute, and we'll come right back. Okay, so now that that's dry, you can see that the rust effects are much more toned down than they were before. there's not that high contrast in areas. And that was just with a simple wash of a few different products that I showed, and a mineral spirits base, mostly mineral spirits. You could probably get away with doing it with just mineral spirit wash over top of it, just to smooth everything down. So that's dry. The last step that we need to do is to get your weathering chalks. And what we're going to do is just cover it quickly in a base coat of brown chalk, very light. So we're going to take our brown chalks and just hit it with a quick coating of our brown weathering chalks. Go over all of the different parts of the vehicle with a brown. You can hit some areas heavier and some areas lighter. And it's basically just going to add a little more depth, tone down the rust just a little bit more as a final step. There we go. And the last thing I'm going to do is take some black weathering chalks and hit the areas that are a little more defined. So like the grill here, I'm going to put a little black chalk in the grill to make it stand out a little more, where a little bit of dirt would get stuck in there. I think I'm going to hit some of the bottoms of the car, darken that up a little bit, as well as the back end here near the bumper. Hit the bottom side of this passenger side. There we go. I might hit that corner just a little, make this side a little darker. There you go. That's it. That's how I make a junkyard car with a lifelike vehicle. So here it is. I will not put the glass back in. I will leave it hollow, and I may or may not put the wheels on. Those will be for another time, but basically I would hit these with a little bit of primer, paint them up, weather the wheels, and then make the tires look a little darker. Maybe add a little bit of the AK earth or wet mud effects to them too. Make it look like it's sitting in a junkyard, but that's a different video. This is how I weather a lifelike vehicle to look like a rusted pile of junk. So I will have photos on our website, on the blog post about this as well. But there she is. Pretty cool what we took her from to what it is now. Oops. And you can throw it. No, don't throw it. But that's it. Now it's ready to sit in our junkyard and decay. So that is it. Hopefully this works for you guys. I love AK products. They're easy to work with. They're super simple, and they're very hard to mess up. And you get some really cool effects like we did tonight. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit subscribe and like down in the bottom corner. And have an awesome one. Hopefully this was helpful. So hopefully you guys picked up some cool rusting tips from me. I love AK stuff. I suggest picking it up for yourself. I think it's $17 or so for the 3-pack. It's definitely worth picking up the crusting rust effects. Totally one of my favorite things from them. So awesome. Have a good weekend. Later.